there's a new possible betting scandal happening in baseball right now. And Pete, with a buddy of his, I believe in Las Vegas last week or something, had something to say about it. And Shohei Ohtani, sorry.
That's okay.
He, I guess the highest paid baseball player ever, it seems like, with the contract you just signed. His interpreter, it is claimed, who knows what the report's going to say, that either his interpreter was betting and the player paid his losses possibly. We don't know what the full story is yet. But then Pete says, you've probably seen it, I saw it on Twitter a few days ago. He said, well, if I would have had an interpreter, I'd be in the Hall of Fame. Can you break that down?
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's a viral video that Pete posts, and it was classic Pete Rose. I was sort of waiting for him to inject himself into the story. He couldn't help himself. And it's a great joke. It's a good line. I wish I'd had an interpreter in the 1970s and 80s. I would have gotten off scot-free. That's good stuff. And the video does what the video was intended to do. We're talking about it. It goes viral. But here's the thing. Pete Rose didn't have an interpreter in the 70s and 80s. But he did have inner circle guys, his close pals, his guy who was at his shoulder every day, all day. And it was those men who were placing Pete's bets. It was those men who were placing his bets with bookies on baseball, paying his debts with bags full of money, collecting his debts in bags, collecting his winnings in bags full of money. Pete Rose very rarely personally interacted with the bookies that he used. And so, it sort of falls short in that way. And about the Ohtani situation in general, I mean, what we don't know about what has happened here could fill the entirety of Dodger Stadium right now. We simply have no idea what has happened in Southern California with this alleged illegal bookie and alleged gambling debts of $4.5 million. My goodness. We don't know. But it will be interesting to see what happens next, because there is a roadmap for what happens next. And it is the Pete Rose story. And there are parallels here again and again and again. And we could talk about those parallels. There's so many historic parallels to what happened 35 years ago and what is happening now. And in my opinion, regardless of where this heads, it is already the biggest gambling scandal that baseball has faced since 1989 in Pete Rose.
So do you think now, where gambling is so much more prevalent in the country, it's legal in so many states, we're doing it on apps now on sports betting, is it changing what's okay and how close the people are to the players now?
It's absolutely changing everything. I mean, just think about how we consume sports now. Think about how we watch sports now. I mean, I don't know about you, Mark, but I have a legal betting app on my phone. And I sometimes use that legal betting app to place small bets on a game that I might be watching. It is fundamentally changing everything. And, the money is absurd.
How's that going to change maybe even how we look at the player? Would we look at Pete? Would we have looked at him as less harmful today because everyone's betting out in the open?
So, obviously, if a player were to do today what Pete Rose did in 1989, placing bets on his own games, even on his own games to win, that's against the rules. It does compromise the integrity of the game. And that player would face the same banishment that Pete Rose does. But to your question, I do believe it is different now. And the test of it will come probably soon. And I don't mean with the Shohei Ohtani situation
There's
directly.
multiple things. I'm just, if you pay attention to the sports world, and you ever pull up ESPN or all these places, there's things out there consistently now.
Oh.
I don't have any examples, but this player and this person's it's all over the place.
Oh, the headlines even the last couple of weeks. It's not just Major League Baseball.
It's in basketball. It's
Yeah, there's an investigation in college basketball right now. There's an investigation in the NBA right now.
Yep.
obviously the Shohei Ohtani situation right now. And these headlines are just sprinkled into the sports pages, whereas 35 years ago it would have been front page, bold print, top of the fold, 3-inch headlines. And now it's just another gambling scandal. And I do think there will come a time, possibly soon, where a big name player, okay, not a backup linebacker, not a punt returner, not a guy coming off the bench in the NBA, a big name is going to get involved in something here, placing bets on him or herself, and that will be the test. That will be the test of how our cultural acceptance of gambling has changed. And it may even come up in the Shohei Ohtani situation now. Major League Baseball has opened an investigation into what has happened in Los Angeles in and around the Dodgers locker room. When baseball did this in 1989, they pulled out all the stops. They hired an outside counsel, independent counsel, who was, by the way, highly overqualified, and I say that with respect, to take on this case. John Dowd, the man I mentioned before, was a former Justice Department attorney. He had unraveled cases that led to indictments of real mobsters and corrupt politicians. Dowd told me and has said to others before that the Pete Rose case was one of the easiest cases he ever took on because, the lies were right there on the surface. So Major League Baseball hires this man who is incredibly experienced. He has a team of investigators, including former FBI agents. And in a span of 10 weeks, they unravel years and years of lies and produce a report that is a stunningly accurate first draft of history with thousands of pages of documents and exhibits. I mean, it's an amazing amount of evidence. Is that what Major League Baseball is going to do now?
That's the question. Will it be the same?
I don't know. They've revealed very little about how they're pursuing this case and the allegations. And I'm not casting doubt on what they're doing. I do believe Major League Baseball has to do a real investigation here. Shohei Ohtani's interpreter wasn't just his friend, wasn't just the guy, translating the questions in the moment at the press conferences. Ippei Mizuhara was an employee of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So the investigation will be real. But what appetite do we have for a months-long investigation? And I mean, by we, I mean the public, the fans, even baseball, in a world where, gambling is far more acceptable. In the 1970s and 80s, you had to know a bookie.
Yeah, that was the only way.
And not all of us did.
Yeah.
Most people didn't.
Yeah. And
And even if you did know a bookie or the guy you played golf with had a bookie, it was always a little shady, and you would be nervous.
it was against the law.
It was against the law, and you would be nervous as a stand-up person selling insurance or
To be found out.
right, or to get in debt to some guy you don't know, right?
Yeah, so what are you going to do if you place a $3,000 bet with him and you win and he just doesn't pay you? Are you going to call someone? You're not going to call anyone.
Exactly, all
Right.
kinds of problems,
Yeah.
right? And now all of these people, myself, others, we can just download the app, upload our credit card, place our bets, and watch the game.
That's wild.
And we're on our couch in our pajamas, right? I mean, it is fundamentally different.